We now return to the Transformers.
Hey, what's up everyone? James here, and I'm coming at you with the final series in the Autocracy trilogy, Primacy. This final series is amazing. It might be the best in the trilogy. If you are new here or behind and need to catch up and haven't watched the two previous series, Transformers Autocracy and Monstrosity, that I've covered on the channel, check out the IDW Transformer Timeline playlist I'll have in a pinned comment down below. You can watch all the videos separately or check out the full story videos I made of them in the playlist. With that being said, let's get into it. So, Primacy begins with recapping the events of Monstrosity. It says it began with a catastrophe that devastated Cybertron's energon reserves. This led many Cybertronians to give up on Cybertron and leave, an event that would be known as the Great Exodus. However, the pain and suffering Cybertron would endure did not end there. Scorponok, who betrayed Megatron and took over the Decepticons, awakened the Titan of Death and Horror, Trypticon. It rampaged across the planet until the most dangerous Cybertronian alive returned to Cybertron, Megatron, who saved the planet by ending Scorponok's reign of destruction and by helping Grimlock stop the mighty Titan. Now, all is quiet on Cybertron, but this peace will not last for long. Our story really begins at McAdam's Oil House, which is basically a bar on Cybertron. Everyone is watching Blaster's broadcast. He is sharing the report given by the Conclave of Representatives on the crisis that took place in Harmonex, basically Trypticon's rampage. Now, the reason why the Autobots government is called the Conclave of Representatives now and not the Grand Convocation anymore is because it basically failed after Die Atlas and the Circle of Light left, so it was restructured and renamed. It's really Optimus trying to introduce a more democratic form of government on Cybertron. Now, this report displays Optimus's administration is using the same media tactics as the former administration under Sentinel and Zeta Prime used before. The report claims that Optimus and the Autobots defeated Trypticon, which we know isn't true, but honestly, this is what they should report. They can't mention Grimlock because he and the Dinobots are essentially ghosts, and reporting that Megatron helped defeat Trypticon wouldn't make their administration look too good. It might even gain him more supporters. Also, Blaster mentions that there are bots claiming the media is being kept away from Harmonex, and the Conclave has refused to reveal the total number of bots who left during the Great Exodus. So Blaster poses the question to the people, is Optimus's administration lying to them? And if so, are they just as bad as all the others before them? Now, who is at McAdam's Oil House that was missing in action in Monstrosity that we finally get to see again is Hot Rod. He is fresh out of the Autobot Academy and is here having this debate with his friend at the bar about whether they can trust Optimus's government or not. Hot Rod argues that he doesn't care for the Conclave, but he believes in Optimus Prime. He knows that the Decepticons want to just burn everything, and he's seen enough things burn. Moments later, when he leaves the bar, this shadowy figure approaches, who turns out to be Slinger. He reveals he's part of the Decepticons now and considers them the real people's movement. They fixed him up, gave him a new form, and made him into a fighter. He tells Hot Rod that wearing the Autobot badge is a disgrace to everyone who died in Nyan. Hot Rod fires back, telling Slinger not to judge him and that he knows he had no choice that day. Slinger makes it clear to Hot Rod that from here on out, he needs to watch his back. Now, this switch up from Slinger is legit out of nowhere. It really doesn't make any sense. And even him judging Hot Rod for blowing up Nyan doesn't make sense. I'm kind of going to go on a tangent here and explain this, but if you don't care, you can just skip this part using the chapters below. So, back in Autocracy Chapter 6, initially Hot Rod hesitated on activating the phase chargers to blow up Nyan, until Slinger said, "It is better that our people die at our hands than be drained to serve Zeta's war machine." At the end of Autocracy, Slinger told Bumblebee that he and the survivors of Nyan would essentially become chroniclers of Cybertron's history. Then, going into Monstrosity, the last time we saw him, he was a part of the Grand Convocation, representing Cybertronians who are unaligned with any faction. It's for those reasons why I say this big shift in his character doesn't make any sense. I wish this big shift in Slinger were built up instead of popping out of nowhere. But let me know what you all think about this change in his character. Anyways, now in Cybertron's southern polar region, we see Optimus and Ironhide scaling the Grav Haran Glacier that has stood there for 50 million years. It's a place that hasn't been visited in millions of years. Prime is here because he wants to clear his mind after the events of Monstrosity, and he's also here to train and test his limits. And I like this a lot because though the Transformers are these super advanced robots, they don't get better by installing new programs or new software. And yes, of course, they can gain power through objects or modifying their forms. Still, at the end of the day, they need to become stronger just like us by working towards it. Eventually, Optimus and Ironhide reach the summit. Ironhide detects they're not alone. Using his binoculars, he sees a huge object on the horizon, giving off a serious energon signature. They end up going to investigate. Meanwhile, at Iacon in Metroplex, Hot Rod arrives, where he learns at Ultra Magnus and Cup are anxiously waiting for Ratchet and Wheeljack's energon purification treatment on the Dinobots to be finished. Grimlock is the last one being treated, and they're slightly worried that it may not work since Grimlock's energon corruption ran the deepest. They shortly see the treatment was successful. When Grimlock emerges from the operating room, not only did Wheeljack and Ratchet clear the Dinobots of the raw corrupt energon, but also re-engineered them back to their old forms when they were in the Primal Vanguard. Now, how a drill sergeant doesn't show respect to a fresh recruit in the military, Grimlock kinda does the same thing here to Hot Rod. When Hot Rod voices how he can't wait to kick some Decepticon butt alongside the Dinobots, Grimlock basically tells him they're not on the same level, and that he has to prove himself first before he gets any respect. Transitioning back to Ironhide and Optimus, after traversing the glacier, they finally reach the source of the energon signature they detected, which is revealed to be a huge bot that Optimus immediately recognizes. This bot is an Omega Sentinel. Now, some of you I'm sure already know who this is. I might even put this in the title of the video, but I'm not gonna say who it is just yet. So for those of you who don't know about the Omega Sentinels, in the Transformers IDW universe, they are ancient beings that were the first generation of Guardian robots. They were tasked with being the guardians of Crystal City, where the 13 Primes reigned. At one point, they were even used to conquer other planets. They're somewhat similar to the Omega Destructors we saw back in Autocracy, who are basically the second generation of Guardian robots. Optimus tries to greet the mighty bot, and though it's surprised to see other beings, it immediately points its blaster at Optimus and Ironhide, demanding it must not be disturbed because it's waiting for the Prime's return. Initially, it doesn't believe Optimus when he says he is the Prime until he reveals he carries the Matrix of Leadership. This is where Optimus discovers the exact Prime the Sentinel has been waiting to return is Nova Prime, the original Prime who united Cybertron. I won't go into detail on Nova Prime in this video because I plan on eventually making a video of an issue that gives his origin and history on Crystal City, amongst other things that's really cool. Optimus informs the Sentinel that Nova and his expedition have been lost for millions of cycles. He asks the Sentinel to join them and serve the people again. It agrees to join him and vows to follow the bearer of the Matrix. It offers to take them back to Iacon. After it transforms, Optimus asks, "What shall we call you?" The Sentinel answers, "Supreme. I am Omega Supreme." Yes, Optimus has gained the leader and strongest of the Omega Sentinels. From there, we go to my favorite part in this issue. Megatron with his Decepticon forces still at the ruins of Harmonex. Remember, Monstrosity ended with Megatron giving Trypticon Pentius' spark, reviving the Titan of Death. And since then, Megatron has reflected on everything that transpired in Monstrosity and has had a revelation. He shares it with Trypticon as the beast sleeps. He explains that Scorponok believed Trypticon was just a mindless beast of destruction, just wanting to unleash its fury on Cybertron, hoping it would eliminate the weak from the world. But he was wrong. Chaos isn't what will transform Cybertron, but control. He says we will together bring ruin upon all those who oppose us. This world shall be ours. So swears Megatron. He mentions how he can feel Pentius' spark coursing within Trypticon. And the reason why he can feel it is because Megatron still has remnants of Pentius' spark within himself. So he and Trypticon sort of share a spark bond. Suddenly, Trypticon awakens and calls him Wanderer as Pentius did. When Megatron asks if he is Pentius, Trypticon answers no and yes. Really, I would say he is a combination of both. He agrees with Megatron that Cybertron will be theirs, but they will have to burn the world first and create a perfect one from the ashes. He questions Megatron if he has the will to do this. Megatron brushes over his resolve being questioned, because he is more focused on Pentius possibly being in control of Trypticon, since he really can't be trusted. He asks Trypticon how much of Pentius lives inside of him. Trypticon answers that his memories are scattered, dark flashes of the ages long past. All he can remember are feelings of cruelty, malice, and hatred for everything that lives. Megatron becomes furious because it doesn't answer the question if these are Trypticon's memories or Pentius. Through the spark bond they share, Trypticon shows Megatron the memories he sees. In these memories, Megatron sees Trypticon striding across a vast, desolate, lifeless field where Cybertron's first battle took place, the Battle of Gods. He sees another world, Junkion, breaking apart, pieces of it drifting into the void of space, taking with it the people's dreams and aspirations. He sees devils, the quintessence, bringing death to entire civilizations and birthing monstrosities. Countless worlds burning cycle after cycle. The memories begin to overwhelm Megatron, and he orders Trypticon to stop. Trypticon tells Megatron that he will understand in time the scale of such evil. The memories don't shake Megatron's determination. He explains they only confirm what he's known all along, that the universe is split between those that are weak and those that are strong. He says, "Serve me well, Trypticon, and rise." When the Decepticons arrive, Megatron gives this awesome speech. He says, "War is coming, my Decepticons. Our final hour of vengeance draws near, but many of our forces were scattered when the Autobots retook Iacon from us, and many others abandoned the Decepticon cause when Scorponok took control of leadership. In short, our numbers are too few to launch a full-scale assault on the Autobots. For now, with the aid of the mighty Trypticon, we will leave Cybertron and gather our full strength. Gather our long-lost brethren back into the fold." Later, flying above Taraxis aboard Skylynx, Hot Rod informed Skylynx that Magnus wanted them to fly over Harmonex after they were done in order to see Trypticon's condition. We see through the lens of Hot Rod and Grimlock that the Autobots rebuilt the Taraxis mega refinery. It's drawing on the raw volatile energon they discovered deep beneath the caverns and are able to purify it at an accelerated rate, solving the issue of the energon shortage crisis they were facing. Hot Rod sees it as hope and power for Cybertron, but Grimlock doesn't. They get into an argument here, and Grimlock explains he could never look at it that way because the Taraxis caverns and the Energon took away his best friend and turned him into a monster. Hot Rod's response to this shows us not only how much he's grown since Autocracy, but also shows us how he's starting to sound like Optimus. He reminds Grimlock that he and the Dinobots are cured and have a fresh start, that holding on to all that pain and guilt will just burn up inside of him. This enrages Grimlock, and he tells Hot Rod he knows nothing of guilt and pain, which we know isn't true. If anyone else carries a lot of guilt and pain, it's Hot Rod. The guy had to kill his own people. Suddenly, their argument gets interrupted when Skylynx tells them to look outside, and that's when they both see Trypticon is gone. At that moment, in orbit above Cybertron, Megatron and the Decepticons are aboard Trypticon, ready to depart and bring back the mightiest army this universe has ever seen. You are going to go nuts at the end of this video. Oh man, it's gonna be awesome. Hey, what is up everyone? James here, and we are back with Primacy. This video is going to be so good. We are going to see in this video Megatron form his mighty army. We'll see some Decepticon subgroups, and it's going to be awesome. If you are new here, check out the playlist in the pinned comment down below, and subscribe to join the Beyonders if you want more Transformers content. Okay, so part 2 opens on this planet called Magmara 9, also known as the Cauldron. It was known as a world of wealth, prosperity, and shining cities, but is now known as a lawless outland of broken highways. Strongbox is here transporting goods on this planet, and I feel bad for him because he just keeps getting ambushed. He got ambushed by the Dinobots and Monstrosity, and now here on the Cauldron, he is getting ambushed by the Decepticons, psycho evil speedsters, and kings of the road, the Stunticons. In the comics, they first appeared in Transformers Marvel UK issue number 63, and it was titled Second Generation, where Buster Witwicky, in a terrible nightmare, saw them in a vision of a possible future. On the show, they were the second combiner team introduced after the Constructicons in the cartoon series, making their appearance in season 2. The roster consists of Wild Rider, Breakdown, Dead End, Dragstrip, and the leader of the group, Motormaster. Now, being a combiner team allows them to come together and form the powerful Metasaur. They end up surrounding Strongbox, and even though he tries to assure them he isn't carrying anything valuable, they ignore him because Swindle's tip to them said otherwise. Now, you would think with a name like Strongbox he would be impenetrable or at least very durable, but nope, the Stunticons smash him and send him flying over the bridge here. They open him up but discover Thundercracker was the cargo Strongbox was carrying. Thundercracker reveals this was all a ruse. He set this all up in order to see if the Stunticons haven't lost their edge. Initially, Motormaster assumes Scorponok put him up to this, until Thundercracker reveals Megatron is back, and he's got the biggest heist for them, stealing Cybertron. The next planet we visit is Canis Tor. It was once known as a lush jungle world with complex ecosystems and species of every kind. At least that was until 5 predators arrived months ago. Now Canis Tor is a vast, lifeless graveyard, and the predators responsible for this are the greatest, in my opinion, of the Decepticon subgroups, the original Predacons. When it comes to the Predacons, they first appeared in the comics in issue 96 of the Transformers Marvel UK comics titled Prey, where the Decepticons summoned them to hunt down Optimus Prime. They popped up in season 3 of the cartoon series. Their group is composed of bots whose alt forms are all fierce animals. I like to think of them as the Decepticons' answer to the Autobots Dinobots. Razorclaw is the leader, and his alt form is a lion. Rampage's alt form is a tiger. Dive Bombs is an eagle. Headstrong is a rhino, and Tantrum is a bull. Now, what separates them from the Dinobots is they can combine together. They're combiners, and they form the most powerful combiner of all, Predaking, a combiner who is unstoppable and is second to none in battle. Right now, the Predacons have put themselves in quite a predicament. Because of their insatiable hunger, they've wiped out all life on the planet. Now that they're running low on energon and have no way off this planet, they've started turning on each other. As Razorclaw and Rampage are fighting, the rest of the Predacons mention the only thing left is to feed on each other. When Dive Bomb passes out, that becomes a reality. But before the Predacons dine on his corpse, Astro Train descends on the planet with Starscream. Razorclaw reminds Starscream that he told him he had no interest in serving Scorponok, and that he swore an oath to Megatron. Starscream replies, Megatron has returned. Your master calls. The hunt begins anew. Are you in or out? Meanwhile, as Megatron creates his mighty army, back on Cybertron, Optimus and Alpha Trion discuss the discovery of Omega Supreme that happened in the last video. Optimus mentions that ever since they returned to Iacon, Supreme has been watching over him non-stop, that he was hoping he would acclimate well, become a part of Cybertronian society again, and a part of the Autobots. However, Alphatron makes a very good point. He reminds Optimus that Omega Supreme stood watch for millions of years. It's going to take time for him to acclimate to others in this new world, this new time, that it might take 1,000,000 years for him to find himself again. There's a lot more to Supreme's story that we'll learn later, and I really can't wait for that. Now, returning to the Decepticons, we go to this planet called the Presidium, a former garrison of Optimus Prime. The Combaticons who are here are trying to steal an old cache of weapons Optimus Prime had sealed away here because they were considered too dangerous to keep on Cybertron. Now, like the Stunticons, they appeared in Buster Witwicky's Nightmare Possible Vision of the Future and Transformers Marvel UK issue 63, Second Generation. In the cartoon series, they were the third Decepticon combiner team introduced, appearing in season 2. What makes them so different though when compared to the Predacons and Stunticons is they operate with military precision because of their leader, Onslaught, who is a brilliant tactician. The rest of the members are Brawl, who is a loud brawler, hence the name, Blastoff, Vortex, who is the interrogator and Joker-like bot of the group because he likes to torture people, and Swindle, who we know is an information broker and dealer in black market goods, among other things. As they are trying to break into this safe, they realize the passcodes Swindle got aren't working and end up being locked out of the system. Before Onslaught blows a hole into Swindle, the safe doors suddenly open, revealing Starscream and the Predacons. Starscream reveals he allowed the passcodes to fall into Swindle's hands in order to lure them here, and mentions he doesn't want the weapons, he wants them for the war of reckoning and destruction that is to come. The big payout he promises convinces them to join. Out in deep space, aboard Trypticon, Soundwave informs Megatron that the full force of the Decepticons is nearly assembled and that they have arrived at their destination. However, Megatron senses Soundwave's doubt and tells Soundwave to speak his fear. Soundwave says that this final world that they've arrived at is death and madness. But before he speaks further, Megatron cuts him off. He reveals to Soundwave he considers him to be the most faithful and loyal of his soldiers, but questioning his judgment is dangerous. The Megatron he knew is gone, and he will not be denied. This final planet, which I'm sure a lot of you probably already figured out that Trypticon descends upon, is the deaf world Junkion. The junk zombies begin to close in and gather around the ship, ready to feast. But when Megatron emerges from the ship, they stop in their tracks. He asks if they remember him, and each one of them has a different name for him. They say Stranger Destroyer, Wreckage Demon, and the Ruined King. Megatron says, kneel before your master, kneel before Megatron. All the junk zombies bow before him, submitting to their king. Megatron orders them to gather all their clans, instruments of war, and prepare their ship. They're leaving with him and leaving the ghosts of this hell behind. I not only love this because it is so sick, but also because it's basically the opposite of what happened in Transformers the movie, where in the film Hot Rod met the Junkions and after exchanging the universal greeting and a random dance party, quickly became friends and ended up joining Hot Rod and the Autobots in their battle against Unicron. Sometime later on Cybertron at Metroplex, Bulkhead informs Optimus that their long-range scanners picked up something big heading their way. Initially, Optimus thinks it's Cybertronians returning who left during the Great Exodus, but when Bulkhead says this object has a massive energon signature, Optimus quickly deduces it's Trypticon and the Decepticons. Hot Rod suggests shooting it down, but Bulkhead tells him the raining debris would be catastrophic to the planet. While Optimus wonders what Megatron's target is, Grimlock and Hot Rod have already figured it out. They are sure Megatron plans on dropping Trypticon right on top of them. And this is where it gets nuts. At that moment, above the planet, that's exactly what Megatron is doing. He says, "Trypticon, it's time. Give my regards to Metroplex." Trypticon replies, "With pleasure, Lord Megatron." Notice that the Decepticons are now aboard the Junkions ship, which is Pentius's quintessent cruiser we saw back in Monstrosity. As Trypticon is descending like a missile, Bumblebee informs Optimus if they don't slow him down, he'll level Iacon and every tourist state. With no time left, Optimus orders Teletran to initiate Gamma defense protocols. Teletran reroutes all city energon batteries to the primary Titan core. You all know what that means. Optimus orders all Autobots to abandon the facility and says to Metroplex, "We need your strength, Mighty One. Now more than ever. It's time to stand and defend." Metroplex replies, "Order acknowledged. Do not fear. All will be well." Once he fully transforms, it is at that moment Trypticon crash lands on top of Metroplex, toppling the mighty Titan and destroying the city's center. As Trypticon's jaws loom over Metroplex's head, he says, "It's good to see you again, old Titan. It's been far, far too long."
We now return to the Transformers.
This video is going to be absolutely insane. What's up everyone? This is James and we are back with Primacy. Remember that epic cliffhanger I left you all on in the last video? That was just the start of the chaos and the battle of titans you're about to witness in this video. So we start right where we left off with the colossal ancient titans of death and hope battling. Their fight is so intense that it's emitting shockwaves all across Cybertron. In a brief break in their epic battle, Metroplex says, "I remember you, beast of perfect darkness, and I'll seal you back beneath the world where you belong." Trypticon replies, "You can try, old Titan, but the horror and terrible violence that's coming to Cybertron cannot be stopped even by you." They exchange mighty blasts, and their fight continues. Meanwhile, below the surface, Optimus contacts Omega Supreme to check the status of Megatron's ship since the link to Iacon's orbital sensors have been disrupted. Omega reports that it's just sitting in low orbit, doing nothing. Some of the Autobots assume that Megatron is waiting for Trypticon to defeat Metroplex so he can make his move. And Optimus agrees, but he senses they are missing something, that it seems like Megatron is 6 steps ahead of them. At that moment, in orbit, Megatron orders Soundwave to prepare the ship for violent re-entry and says, "This is the hour of our ascension, Soundwave. Try to enjoy it." Back at the Battle of Titans, Metroplex is losing. Trypticon, standing over him, taunts him, saying, "You are far weaker than I remember. You know you cannot beat me. Just lay down and die." Metroplex grabs a building and smashes Trypticon in the face while yelling, "It's you who shall fall." As Trypticon falls over, he tries to strike Metroplex with his tail, but the Great Titan sees the attack coming and blasts his tail off. However, Trypticon still lands an attack when he strikes Metroplex's knee, causing him to collapse to his knees. The fight becomes just a knockdown, drag-out fight. They're just exchanging blows while on the ground. Eventually, Metroplex shows Trypticon who is the superior Titan when he grabs Trypticon's head and smashes it into a building. He says, "All the years have taught me how to stand, even in pain." He completely shatters Trypticon's jaw, finally defeating the beast. But it's not over. Trypticon says, "You are victorious, Titan, but you still lose." Now, Metroplex believes he's just speaking nonsense and replies, "You are beaten. You pose no threat to me." Trypticon laughs and reveals that his job wasn't to defeat him, only to distract him. Cause out of nowhere, Metroplex gets impaled by the quintessent cruiser. Optimus yells, "No!" Metroplex, the Titan of Hope, has fallen. Now, do you think the insaneness of this video ends there? You would be so wrong, because within the Quintessence Cruiser, Megatron orders the Decepticons to ready for battle and kill everything that moves. He says all the pieces are set. Our moment is now. Let Iacon burn. At the same time, in the Autobot command bunker, the Autobots are just dealing with the loss of Metroplex and wondering how many troops Megatron has with him. Optimus orders the Autobots to prepare for battle, giving this great war speech. He says, "We must protect this city. This may be the fight of our lives. Whatever we face out there, remember who you are, Autobots, and what you are fighting for." The Autobots roll out and form up in front of the Quintessence Cruiser. The cargo bay doors open and Megatron unleashes hell. A massive wave of junk zombies pours out of the ship. The final battle for Cybertron begins. The Autobots get swarmed, overwhelmed by the sheer number of junk zombies. It's insane, it's crazy. Prowl suggests that they pull back, but Optimus Prime refuses. He yells, "We will hold the line!" This situation is bad, and it gets a lot worse. Jetfire and Perceptor radio to Optimus that the junk ship not only pierced Metroplex, but penetrated Iacon's substructure, compromising the city's primary coolant plants. Perceptor tells Optimus that he has minutes until the unprocessed coolant floods the city's center. At that moment, it's too late. The coolant reaches the surface and creates a small-scale ocean, and once it interacts with Cybertron's atmosphere, it produces highly concentrated acid rain. Megatron has created the perfect habitat for something else he brought from Junkions: the Sharkticons. Megatron watches and enjoys the nightmare he's created. Everything has gone to plan. This is a great example of Megatron's genius. He successfully brought the dangerous elements of Junkion that he faced to Cybertron. He orders the Decepticons to wait for the Autobots' forces to whittle down more before they attack. The Sharkticons are doing exactly that. The Autobots are struggling. They have the junk zombies and now the Sharkticons to contend with. Optimus Prime, Hot Rod, and Grimlock are fighting side by side against these monstrosities. Grimlock and Hot Rod get into a bit of an argument during the heat of battle, but Optimus stops it. He gives an amazing speech that epitomizes the difference between the Autobots and Decepticons. He says, "Both of you, enough. Don't you see? It's honor and loyalty that binds us together. That's the difference between us and the Decepticons." For all his vision, Megatron's followers are only motivated by mistrust, fear, and blind obedience, whereas we will stand and fight for each other. Now, Autobots, lay down suppressive fire! The Autobots take down a wave of Sharkticons. Megatron is impressed, but this was anticipated. He orders the Combaticons and the Seekers to encircle the field and lock on to Target Alpha. We'll learn who Target Alpha is in a second. In the meantime, at the battle's center, Blackwall ambushes Grimlock, wanting to reminisce their gladiator days and have a rematch. I didn't realize just how much he towers over Grimlock. He starts beating down Grimlock and taunting him as he does it. He tells Grimlock he is nothing without his beast mode and that he and the Dinobots should have stayed hidden. Grimlock and the Dinobots get separated from the rest of the Autobots, and the Decepticons are closing in on them. Bumblebee tells this to Optimus, but Optimus cannot help them because Megatron will overrun their strong point if he splits his forces. So he finally calls in the big guns, Omega Supreme. He orders Supreme to bombard Megatron's position in order to scatter his command group. Before Omega follows Optimus's order though, he admits he lied to him and reveals the real truth behind his isolation. He says, "I did not endure countless cycles of isolation out of some loyalty to Nova Prime. I waited for him to return so I could destroy him. He was a corrupt disgrace to the Primes I once served. But you are nothing like him. I see greatness in you. These Decepticons have ravaged the world I love. They remind me of Nova, who sought dominion over others. I'll follow your order, Optimus Prime. I will bring justice down upon them." However, it's too late. Megatron was already aware and ready for Omega Supreme. He is Target Alpha. Megatron orders the Combaticons and Seekers to take him down. They unleash firepower hell upon him. Omega Supreme falls. The Autobots are on the edge of defeat. Megatron orders both assault groups to keep firing and pulverize anything that moves. Suddenly, in that moment where Megatron believes he is close to victory, he hears laughter from a disembodied voice. The voice says, "Your fury is magnificent, Wanderer." Megatron immediately recognizes who this is. It's Pentious. He asks how can he hear his voice, and Pentious reveals he has always been there, living within the remnants of his spark. He says, "Foolish little conqueror, I am part of you, and through you, I will devour your precious Cybertron." We have finally made it to the end of Transformers Primacy. What's up everyone, James here. Before we go into the video, if you are new here or need to catch up, the Transformers Primacy playlist will be in a pinned comment down below. Also, make sure you stick to the very end of the video because your input is needed on what we cover next in IDW's Transformer timeline. With that being said, let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So continuing where we last left off, the battle for Cybertron continues. The Decepticons are continuing to concentrate all firepower on the Autobots' position. They're all enjoying the devastation and believe the Autobots are defeated, except Megatron. He believes they could still lose the battle, but right now he's distracted because he's being haunted by the spirit of Pentious. He realizes that Pentious manipulated him into taking his spark and reviving him. As that's happening, the acid rain Megatron created in the last video is now affecting the Decepticon forces. Skywarp reports to Starscream that the Seeker's instruments are going haywire, and engines are burning out. They end up falling out of the sky and landing right on top of the Combaticon tank unit, causing chaos within the Decepticon command point. This leads to my favorite part in this story. The Autobots come back. At that moment, after the dust settles from the Decepticons' barrage, not only did the Autobots survive the barrage due to Trailbreaker's shield, but who else survived was Omega Supreme. Optimus sees the Decepticons are in disarray. He tells the Autobots this is where they push back, and asks Supreme, "Are you fit for duty?" Omega replies, "Merely singed, Optimus. I am ready to fight for my people." Optimus says, "Very well then. Autobots, attack!" They charge the Decepticons and both sides clash. The image of this is absolutely amazing, and it's nice seeing my boy Skylynx enter the fray. At the Decepticon command point, Soundwave informs Megatron that the Autobots are breaking through the forward lines, and they're losing the advantage. However, Megatron is still distracted by Pentious. He tells Soundwave he's leaving to reach Trypticon's body, and that if he should fail in his mission, the Decepticons are to retreat and burn Iacon to the ground. What's going on with Megatron, if you're confused, is Pentious is slowly taking over Megatron, and once he does, he would revive his spark in Trypticon so he could continue the destruction of Cybertron. At the Eastern Grid, Blackwall is trying to snap Grimlock's head off. He tells Grimlock once he takes his head, he'll take his fire sword as a trophy. Grimlock says, "You want the sword so bad, Blackwall? You can have it." He stabs it into Blackwall's head and rips it apart. Grimlock proving he's still one of the greatest gladiators. Also at the Eastern Grid elsewhere, Hot Rod is taking out Decepticons. Onslaught catches him off guard. Now how Onslaught ended up here when he was clearly with the Decepticon main force doesn't matter, because who ends up taking him out and saving Hot Rod is Slinger. He admits that he was wrong. Being an Autobot or a Decepticon doesn't matter anymore. Cybertron is broken. Suddenly, from behind Slinger, a voice says, "No, just you, traitor." This voice is Razorclaw. He grips and pierces Slinger's eyes as the rest of the Predacons rip his limbs off. It's such a ruthless kill. They tell Hot Rod he's going to meet the same fate. Hot Rod replies, "It's not going to be easy, Predacon." Now, Chris Metzen and Flint and Dille don't let this trilogy end without another badass entrance from the Dinobots. because as the Predacons are closing in on Hot Rod, coming out of the smoke from the battlefield behind him is the Dinobots. Grimlock says, "I think they almost believed you. Next time, use your big boy voice." The Dinobots charge the Predacons and the two groups clash. Meanwhile, Megatron reaches Trypticon. Bumblebee and this pair of Autobots are guarding it. They threaten Megatron not to come any closer. That turns out being a big mistake. Megatron quickly demolishes the pair of Autobots. They had no chance. Bumblebee fires at him and Megatron just eats the hit. He tells Bumblebee how he thought he would run since he's experienced torture at his hands. He's referring to Autocracy Chapter 10, when Megatron had the Autobots as prisoners. As Megatron grips him, Bumblebee can see he fears something. Megatron, impressed by Bumblebee's courage and perception, still impales Bumblebee on some debris. Nearby, Optimus Prime sees Megatron reaching Trypticon and chases after him, but who ends up getting in his way is Motormaster, who says, "The only way you're getting to Megatron is through me." Optimus replies, "Fair enough." The two semis put the pedal to the metal and charge toward each other. Optimus tears through Motormaster, proving who is the real king of the road. The rest of the Stunticons try to circle up and flank Optimus, but at that moment, a shadow looms over them, saying, "You will not touch him." This shadow is Omega Supreme. He says, "You will all be eradicated." He unleashes a massive blast that ends the Stunticons. Optimus reaches Megatron atop the head of Trypticon. He says, "Megatron, you're not going any further. You've brought enough misery and destruction to Cybertron." This is where Megatron cryptically speaks of the vision Trypticon showed him back in Primacy Part 1. He replies, "You speak of destruction, but know nothing of it. The madness and carnage that's been unleashed here won't end. It will echo from Cybertron. Countless worlds will suffer across the millennia, and our war will never end." Optimus refuses to believe that. Megatron calls him a fool and says, "This is our fate." Optimus replies, "Not while I function. Help me stop this. Our story doesn't have to end here." They both draw their energon weapons and run toward each other. A nice callback to the original Transformers cartoon, where in the episode More Than Meets the Eye Part 2, Megatron and Optimus Prime have their first energon weapons one-on-one clash. They start exchanging blows. As they battle, Megatron tells Optimus he tried creating a better world by bringing order, but now he believes Cybertron has only death in its future. When Optimus refuses to believe this, Megatron reveals the existence of the Quintessons. He says there are devils that lurk in the darkness between the stars, hungering for the annihilation of all life. I was deceived, Optimus. I stole an uncontrollable power, and now it will devour Cybertron. There is no hope for any of us. Optimus responds with that eternal optimism we know he possesses, delivering a great speech. He says, "You are wrong. Whatever it is you've set in motion isn't insurmountable. Yes, fear may grip us all, and the heavens themselves may come crashing down upon our heads. But the brave fight on. We will never bow or succumb to the abyss of defeat. As long as we stand together and fight for each other, we will never lose hope." At that moment in the Eastern Grid, the battle between the Dinobots and Hot Rod versus the Predacons is still raging on. Grimlock and Hot Rod together are taking on Razorclaw, who is giving them quite a fight. What happens next is why I love Grimlock. Grimlock grabs Razorclaw's jaw, Hot Rod holds him down, and Grimlock pulls a King Kong and tears Razorclaw's jaws apart. That's what you get when you mess with the king of the Dinobots. Back atop Trypticon, the battle between Optimus Prime and Megatron is becoming just a knockdown, drag-out fight. They are just battering away at each other with their energon weapons. Megatron points out that this will be their lives for millions of years. Optimus, not wanting that future, tries to speak to that Megatron who sought to rebel against the Autobot Senate's corruption that we saw in his origin, urging him to work together and end the evil he's unleashed. But Megatron believes it's too late. He tells Optimus Pentius is devouring him from the inside, and that the only way to save Cybertron is to destroy him. Optimus, refusing to accept that that is the only way, opens his chest plate, revealing the matrix of leadership. He says, "If it's darkness that has consumed you, then let there be light." He unleashes the massive burning power of the Matrix on Megatron, purging Pentious from his spark. I wish we got to see Pentious being eradicated. The only thing we get is Megatron tells Optimus he can no longer hear Pentious' laughter. Optimus says the malignance has been expunged, but we both know your spark was corrupted long before this. Megatron replies, "Perhaps. Cybertron's death has been prevented, but know this, Optimus Prime, I will never stop hating you." Optimus simply says, "I know," and knocks out Megatron. Moments later, Optimus beams out a huge hologram transmission across the ravaged battlefield, announcing to all the Autobots and Decepticons that the battle is over. He says, "We have all suffered and lost comrades in this madness. Time to stand down and lay down your arms. Look around and see the terrible cost of war. This city was once the shining heart of our civilization. For all our aspirations and principles, I don't see justice or order amid the wreckage. All I see is loss. And I've had enough of it. The Decepticons will face the consequences of their actions. Make no mistake, there will be a reckoning. True order and harmony can never be instilled through the threat of tyrannical control. The society we long for cannot be built through the pillars of domination and fear. We will restore some semblance of civil order and begin to rebuild this world we've sacrificed so much to save. At the same time, we can never hope to seal away the sins of the past. We must never forget the lessons our mistakes have taught us. If we ever forget the terrible cost of war, we will lose more than just the hope of a better future. Ultimately, we will lose ourselves." The war for Cybertron ends with Optimus and the Autobots victorious, Megatron in prison, and the Decepticons scattered. We go to an epilogue, and it's so fitting that the last page here has the same panels that are on the first page of Autocracy Chapter 1, but in reverse order, and of course, with some changes, bringing the entire trilogy full circle. Optimus Prime says, "Once I was known as Orion Pax. I was an officer, a peacekeeper, but I have found a new life, a new calling. With the power of the Matrix coursing within me, I will stand for my people, for all those who cannot stand for themselves. With my Autobots at my side, I will fight to the last. For freedom, for justice, for Cybertron. I am Optimus Prime, and my story is only just beginning." That is the end of Primacy, and the end of Transformers The Autocracy Trilogy. I would like to thank Chris Metzen, Flint, Dille, and Livio Ramondelli for creating such an awesome story. The reason why I titled this video The Fall of Cybertron is because though the planet itself didn't fall, the society and its cities did. Also, it's a great title, one of the games had. In all seriousness though, everything that occurred in this trilogy caused the death of everything the Cybertronians knew. Another reason why is because our journey on Cybertron ends for now at least, and we will now head into the Great War continuing on Earth with the next series on the timeline, Infiltration. However, there is a crossover event called ROM vs Transformers Shining Armor that takes place before Infiltration. Let me know in the comments down below which would you like to see next. Now if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe. Other than that, have an awesome day, and always remember, every day to transform and go beyond. See you later, Beyonders.